Tiny Tim was a unique and beloved performer, known for his quirky appearance, falsetto singing voice, and skill with the ukulele. Despite his popularity, his life had its struggles, and his death was tragic. Join Facts Verse as we take a look at the tragic details of Tiny Tim's death. Born April 12, 1932 in Manhattan, Tiny Tim, whose real name was Herbert Boutros Khoury, had a deep passion for music from an early age. As a child, he was fascinated by music and spent hours listening to all kinds of early 20th century music. His father recognized his love for it and bought him a gramophone, a guitar, and a record of Beautiful Ohio by Henry Burr. He also taught him how to play the guitar. Herbert's passion for music only grew stronger. He created fantasy worlds where he'd sing on popular radio shows. He'd spend countless hours at the public library learning about music recordings and their history. He became fixated on early 20th century music and made himself knowledgeable about the genre. His parents were concerned about him spending so much time alone in his bedroom listening to music. They offered him vocal and guitar lessons if he went outside to enjoy his youth. But music was his only friend, and he declined their offer. In the early 1950s, Herbert saw Arthur Godfrey play the ukulele on his TV show, Arthur Godfrey and His Friends. Watching Godfrey's proficiency on the instrument, Herbert became obsessed with it. His father purchased him a cheap Fender Diamond Head soprano ukulele, which was promoted on Godfrey's program. But Herbert was not impressed with the quality of the instrument and viewed it as a toy. His father then bought him a higher quality one, a white plastic Macaferry Islander, along with Godfrey's instructional booklet, You Can Play the Ukulele. Herbert loved the new instrument, and eventually it became the source of his success. He would take it to auditions hoping to win over record producers. Discovering his uniqueness and becoming Tiny Tim. Herbert's unconventional appearance drew attention and earned him ridicule from those who didn't understand his unique style. He had a slim build and long black hair that he modeled after famous actor Rudolph Valentino. To further enhance his youthful appearance, he covered his face with white powder. His mother, concerned about his appearance, even considered institutionalizing him, but Herbert remained unfazed. Despite the ridicule, he remained true to his character and showed respect to others by addressing them as Mr. or Miss. He struggled to find steady work throughout the 1950s, unable to land any gigs until he discovered his unique singing talent. He realized he could sing in a falsetto voice while playing a record of himself singing to a male and female duet. He sang the male vocals in his natural baritone and the female parts in his newfound falsetto. With this new skill, he began performing in New York bars and clubs, gradually building a fan base. His unique style and singing voice caught the attention of a manager who offered him gigs in Hubert's Museum and Flea Circus, a local freak show. Tiny Tim played under various names, including Larry Love, the Singing Canary, Derry Dover, and Sir Timothy Timmins, but his manager eventually shortened his stage name to Tiny Tim. Finding fame. Tiny Tim's career took off in the 1960s when he gained attention from Hugh Romney, who introduced him to hip audiences high on LSD in New York and California. Tim was welcomed and embraced by that crowd. He gained more popularity after opening for the Lovin Spoonful and Jimi Hendrix at The Scene, a New York club. Hendrix was particularly fond of Tiny Tim's quirky behavior, and the two became friends. In 1967, Tiny Tim caught the attention of Mo Austin, president of Reprise Records, who saw him perform at The Scene and gave him a record deal. He took him to Los Angeles and paired him with record producer Richard Perry and the Wrecking Crew to produce his LP, God Bless Tiny Tim, in April of 1968. The album is a mix of 20s and 30s covers, and Tiny Tim showcases his falsetto and normal baritone voice. The opening track, Tiptoe Through the Tulips with Me, is a cover of a 1929 song written by Al Dubin and Joe Burke for singer Nick Lucas, who sang it in the film Gold Diggers of Broadway. The album also features Livin in the Sunlight, Lovin in the Moonlight, which appeared in the debut episode of SpongeBob SquarePants and helped Tiny Tim gain popularity among kids and teenagers. God Bless Tiny Tim reached number 7 on the Billboard 200, making it his only record to chart. With the album released, Tiny Tim performed the tracks on Rowan and Martin's Lovin. In each of these performances, he would blow kisses as he took his ukulele out of a shopping bag to play Tiptoe Through the Tulips with Me. His appearance on the program led to appearances on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson and The Ed Sullivan Show, further cementing his status as an iconic figure of the 1960s music scene. Decline and failed projects. Tiny Tim performed at the Isle of Wight Festival in 1970 in front of a massive audience of 600,000 people. He sang a mix of English folk songs and rock and roll classics, which were well received by the multinational crowd of hippies. However, after this career highlight in the UK, Tiny Tim's television appearances decreased, and his popularity began to decline. He continued performing in the US, earning several lucrative appearances in Las Vegas. When he lost his contract with Reprise Records, he founded his own label called Vic Tim Records, which was a humorous combination of his and his wife's names. His Vic Tim label released his next 5 singles in 1971 and 72, but it ceased to exist afterwards. A lone single was released on Scepter Records in 1972. In 73, he founded another record company called Toilet Records, which also folded. He was unable to record and release another album in the US for 3 years, but he did release 2 singles on the Bellafon label in West Germany in 1973, and a combined single from these was released on Polydor Records in the UK and Belgium in 1974. He recorded again in the US in 1976, and from then on, he released at least 1 album per year through 1990. He went to Australia in 79 and 80, where he recorded his first fully planned studio albums since 1970. Record producer Martin Sharp produced 3 albums, but only a few hundred copies were made of the first, and only 1,000 copies of the second were ever produced. The last few years. In 1985, Tiny Tim hired a teen disc jockey named Rick Hendricks from WHKY in North Carolina to manage his dates. The two lived at the Olcott Hotel in New York City and began to revive Tiny Tim's career. He released a new song called Santa Claus Has Got the AIDS this year and joined Alan C. Hill Circus. In 1986 and 7, he starred as a ukulele-playing psycho clown in the cult B-grade horror film Blood Harvest, directed by Bill Rebane. The following year, in 1988, he released a country single titled Leave Me Satisfied for the Nashville-based NLT Records. In the 90s, Tiny Tim gained renewed interest, which led to the release of several albums, including I Love Me, Rock, and Girl. He collaborated with artists such as Brave Combo, who acted as his backing band on Girl, as well as Sydney-based rock band His Majesty, with whom he recorded the albums Tiny Tim Rock and Tiny Tim's Christmas album. He made several appearances on the Howard Stern radio show, made a cameo in Stern's film Private Parts, and occasionally appeared on other TV programs. He recorded his last music video with New York's punk rock band Ism, which was a remake of Tiptoe Through the Tulips, but it was never officially released. Tragic ending. In September 1996, Tiny Tim suffered a heart attack just as he began singing at a ukulele festival at Montague Grange Hall in Montague, Massachusetts. The incident is often confused with the nearby Montague Book Mill, where he had recorded a video earlier the same day. Tiny Tim was rushed to nearby Franklin County Medical Center in Greenfield, where he stayed for approximately 3 weeks before being discharged. Due to his frail health and the difficulty of properly catering to his diabetic and heart conditions, the doctors strongly admonished him to no longer perform, but he continued to sing and entertain his fans despite the health risks. On November 30th, 1996, while playing at a gala benefit at the Women's Club of Minneapolis, Tiny Tim suffered another heart attack on stage. His third wife, Susan Marie Gardner, whom he'd married in 1995, led him off stage. He passed away shortly after the performance at age 64. Now it's time to hear from you. What's your favorite memory of Tiny Tim? Let us know in the comments section below.